Hi there, and welcome to Mendel Plays. This is episode 1 of my All Achievements or Bust run. I'm experimenting with the format of these episodes because I find it's a bit easier for me to get the gameplay done separately from the actual audio voiceover. So what I've done for this episode is I've taken the recording of my first session and I've sliced it up into lots of really small parts. I'm then doing the voiceover almost like a commentary track of all the edits that I've actually done. Hopefully this is cohesive and still gives a clear narrative to the gameplay and how I get from point A to point B. I definitely welcome feedback and thoughts about what I'm trying to do here in this format. And we'll see what happens. If this works well enough, then I will tweak it and try to make it better. And if it doesn't work at all, then I'll find a different way to actually broadcast these. As I've said before, I decided that I wanted to do this first run on no sweat mode as opposed to survival because I don't really want to deal with increased radiation. I do also like to start on classic mode so that I have a large asteroid to play with to start. I decided that I wanted to start on the Oceania asteroid and hit random a few times until I arrived at a start that seemed like it would be fun. Naming this colony All Achievements or Bust. For my actual dupes, I wanted to have a digger, a researcher, and a builder, because that's always a good start for me, but also because I am trying to do all achievements, I also wanted to try to find somebody that had some starting plus bonuses to ranching. So these are the 3 that I ended up with, that I rename to help me figure out exactly where their strengths are. The first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure that I had the schedules set in the way that I do. I usually create 1 schedule per 3 dupes, and I start off with 3 different schedules so that one person is always working all the time. There's never any point when all 3 dupes are idling. I do like to have a little bit of overlap in some of the socializing so I can get different dupes to socialize together. This is me setting some defaults in the priorities. I never have anybody research or decorate by default. And then I started to dig. I knew that I wanted these 2 bodies of water to eventually come together, but that was going to take a little while. The first thing, I just wanted to create some access to water initially so I could set up the basic of the wash basin and the outhouse and have that function. You saw in that corner there that I turned off disinfection because disinfection is just a time waster and it's not really that useful. And then after that, I started to set up bed infrastructure. And you could see here too that I found really early on 1 hatch that I was able to trap quite by accident under this door. So because it's in this door, it's not going to go anywhere. That bodes well for when I actually can set up my ranches. The ability to set up ranches is a combination of making sure that my dupes level up in skill, but also that I can do the research. The end goal that I have is to be able to hit incubators, but there's a lot of steps in between that. The first thing that I needed to do was just start with the basics of the mess tables so I can set up a great hall. At cycle 2, I hit my first achievement, which you can see here. It's a very basic one. You have at least 1 toilet and then a bed for every dupe. Now that I have the wheels going, I want to try to optimize when the dupes are on it or off it, so I'm going to reduce the threshold when they decide that they want to charge down to 20% of that initial battery that I built. After that, I wanted to try to build both upward and downward. I wanted to build upward to try to set up where my ranches were eventually going to be, but I also wanted to go downward because I wanted to create more of a trap for carbon dioxide. You see here that I have the option to get into the dupe. Part of carnivore is to make sure that I have more dupes than I really want to start with on a normal colony. So in almost every instance of getting something new at the printing pod, I'm going to get another dupe, add another bed, eventually add another mess table once I actually get the Great Hall moving. This is me prepping for ranches when I can eventually get the ranching skill, which is a little bit further down the skill tree than where I currently have any of my dupes. I also ended up finishing the research for that first 2 levels of food, so I was searching for the next thing which I wanted to get, which was that supercomputer research. I have an algae down there at the bottom that I'm building to deal with the CO2. This is the area that I carved out for my mess hall / great hall. And now you can see that they're happy eating at actual tables. Did a little bit of shuffling around of priorities because there was now more stuff that I needed to have happen. This is me finishing the research and actually being able to build a supercomputer so I can get to the next stage of the research that I need. I started having some breathability issues, so even though I kind of hate them because they are not the most efficient, I decided to build some oxygen diffusers to put more oxygen into the atmosphere. In order for that supercomputer to work, I need a dupe to be able to do advanced research, so the timing of that worked out pretty well. I was also able to level up my digger to be able to add some hard digging. And that deserves a hat. I started to go down this path of doing the research for incubators pretty quickly, but decided I needed to slow down, specifically being able to add jumbo batteries so my dupes don't have to be on the wheel quite so much. This is the next dupe I was able to put up here. Seeing the +3 in husbandry, plus the strength, plus the only negative is no doctoring. Easy choice. Needed to make sure that I give my dupe the proper skill here. Didn't know if I was going to lean on the ranching first or if I wanted to lean on the tidying. I ended up choosing the tidying and then giving them the appropriate hat for that tidying. Add in your bed and your mess table for that particular dupe. And we're now at 5 dupes in 6 cycles. I was able to finish up that jumbo battery research, and as I was digging down, I decided in order to help alleviate some of the dense CO2 area that I would add another oxygen diffuser and make it easier for the dupes to be able to dig down there and not be constantly gasping for breath. This is me starting to carve out my first big water pool. It gets interrupted here by me being able to have a new dupe, which is a second researcher plus piloting skill. So even though that's not necessarily the most useful right now, that's going to be particularly valuable later on when I actually are able to go into space. And as I got closer to being able to do my ranches, I decided that I also needed to be able to build my actual grill station so I could turn the critter meat into barbecue and get more kcal out of that meat. Automation research is pretty important for making sure that I am maximizing my use of power when I have so many incubators running to make my eggs hatch faster. Once I got done with that research, I decided to research smart batteries so I could make the running on the wheel that much more efficient as well. You can see I also had another dupe pickup opportunity. This had ranching and operating bonuses. The only negative is that they snore. Also another easy choice. Now that I had 7 dupes, I needed to expand out my barracks beyond what I initially built for it, and also my mess hall / great hall. Once I got that done, I also wanted to make sure that I finished doing this large water pool because I eventually did want to take the water pool on the left and merge it with the water pool on the right. So I decided to block off the ladders, and of course after I did one tile, my one dupe decided to trap himself in that bottom, so I had to deconstruct that and then reconstruct it, because it's inevitable that a dupe is always going to trap itself in some way. Finally was able to get access to ranching, and so I built my first ranch. Got done with the smart battery research, but in order to be able to make smart batteries and incubators, I need refined metal. And the early access to refined metal is to do research on the rock crusher. Doing some settings for my ranches so that I can be a bit more hands-off if the ranch gets overcrowded. Establishing this allowed me to take these 2 random hatches that had been wandering around wild and put them into the ranch so I could tame them. This is what it looked like after cycle 14. I felt pretty good about my progress overall. Kept on chipping away to build more ranches. I finished my automation research and was trying to figure out what next to do, and decided that I wanted to lean in on purification because I started to get a bunch of polluted oxygen out of my wash basins and outhouses and wanted to clean that up in that area. Finishing up my main water pool allowed me to open up and drain the one on the left and combine the 2 into one larger pool. And as I was finishing up, I decided I needed to set up a 3rd ranch. which also included the building of a ceiling, which meant that I need to dig one level higher. The water continued to drain. I continued to build the top. I eventually was able to level up and get one of my dupes able to cook and actually do the barbecue that was needed. So change the priority of ZZ Hammer from building into cooking and set barbecue to infinite. As soon as there's any meat that's available, turns into barbecue, no problems. Carved out a small area on the right-hand side there to become a CO2 pit that would hold the refrigerators, which would help reduce the time of spoilage of any food that's in there, particularly barbecue, which, if not in a sterile atmosphere, can reduce its freshness by a high percentage per cycle. Here, I actually got another colony achievement, but I wasn't paying attention. I thought both of those notifications were both research related, so I didn't figure out which achievement I got until my next achievement happened a little bit later. Had another opportunity to produce a dupe, but at this point I decided I'm not going to add another dupe. I think I'm just going to take that poke shell spawn and then I'm going to kill it so I can get some immediate meat and barbecue. As I started to explore more north of my nap, I noticed a spiral of oxalite, so I decided to start digging into that to ease up on some of my breathability issues so I didn't have to add more machinery and use more power, in addition to building the deodorizer to try to purify that polluted oxygen I mentioned earlier. It was around this time that I discovered that my Great Hall was oscillating back and forth between a Great Hall and a Mess Hall because the pressure wasn't high enough to keep my plant healthy. So I decided to add another oxygen diffuser and set that running to ensure that my plant would never stifle. I was getting closer and closer to that oxalite loop as well, which I knew was going to help with some of my pressure issues. I wanted to make sure that the oxygen could disperse as widely as possible, so I opened up that top area a little bit and just opened up more avenues for gas to be able to move through, as well as the dupes, which is why I expanded the ladder network to the left-hand side. I finished some key research here for airflow tiles because I knew that I wanted to try to get a better distribution of gases throughout the various parts of my base. And in order to save on power and dupes running on the wheel, I decided to hold off on doing any further research until I had an actual immediate need. I made use of those airflow tiles immediately by adding a ceiling that had some airflow tiles into that oxalite spiral, which you might suspect based on me putting a critter drop-off is going to be another ranch, but that's not true. This is actually going to be my incubator room, which I'll explain in more detail when the incubator room is actually created. I started to do my thing of replacing certain tiles in rooms with airflow tiles so gases can travel more freely, especially CO2 can drift more easily down to the bottom part of the map. I decided that even though my ranch population was still developing, that I wanted to kill off one hatch just so that I could get barbecue on the map and I could set one of these refrigerators to be able to take barbecue and not have to worry about it in the future. It was a little impatient. I probably could have waited and just trusted the building of more population for the hatches so I could get exponential growth in the hatches that I could then kill for meat. But I can be impatient sometimes. And finally, I got another colony achievement here, and this is where I found out that there were 2 colony achievements that I had gotten from the last one that I had skipped. This one was eating something that was cooked on the electric grill, and the other one was just to buy out an entire segment of the skill tree, which I think was achieved through ranching. So there you have it, my first 18 cycles of all achievements are bust. Overall, I feel pretty good about my progress. I think that once I get into cycle 50, cycle 60, it'll become a lot clearer whether I'm going to hit the carnivore achievement or not. If it seems like I might be in danger of not making it, then I can still tweak some things, adjust some things, maybe beeline to the top of the map to try to find some shovels, which give more kcal, or find some grubs, which also give more kcal per kill. Hope you enjoyed this and found it useful. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions or any comments about the way that I'm approaching this series, then please feel free to leave it in the comments. Insert your standard like and subscribe ask here, and please always feel free to tell me your story because I would love to hear it.